Hi, I'm Leah Kavanagh.
And I'm Sarah Linehan.
We're here today in the home of Kitty McGrath.
Kitty went to school in Boherlahan National School.
We would like to thank Kitty for giving up her time to us.
What games did you play? Can you give a list?
Only in football we played. We didn't play hurling.
Did you amuse yourselves in a special way at certain times of the year?
We picked the blackberries for making the jam, and there's not much more we did. That's it. Sometimes we get on the sticks to light the fire.
Do you remember any games played around the fire in the evening or other games outdoors?
We were playing marbles. We were playing with the marbles on the floor.
By what name is your home district known as? What townsland in which parish?
In the parish of Boherlahan, my homestead was in Knottstown.
Were there a great number of families in this townsland when you were young?
There was quite a few of us going to school together. There was 5 in my class at school.
What were the most common family names then?
I suppose Maher and Rhines were most plentiful names in the school.
What types of houses were there? Were they thatched or slated?
They were the old tiled houses. There's some people had thatched houses, alright, but most of them were tiled roofs. They would be floor level, like, they'd be just bungalow types.
Do you know how this townsland got its name?
Well, I know the Boherlahan part of it got it from the wide road. It was called Boherlahan.
Were there any old people living near you when you were a child and you spoke Irish?
There was a lot of old ladies around, old gentlemen around, yes. But I didn't hear an awful lot of the Irish. I hear more of Irish today than I did then.
Could they tell stories in Irish or English?
They could tell the stories, alright, frighten us with ghost stories, what have you.
Give their names and addresses, please.
I'll be very fast on this one. Tom O'Dwyer of Knottstown. There was one old man, and there was I can't remember the names, that won't come to me. Annie Dwyer was an old lady. She used to tell lovely stories. And Me Too, he was another old lady down there, and she used to tell us lovely stories. I can't think of any more of the names.
Were houses more numerous in former times?
I suppose they were really, but you had an awful lot of people staying on farmyard, old houses built in the fields, and half the time we'd be up there robbing the apples off the trees or whatever. But
Did people emigrate when you were a child?
they did. An awful lot immigrated when I was young.
Is it good land around here? Any wood growing there?
Oh, plenty of good land around Boherlahan. Plenty of trees to cut down the timber for the fire. The open fire would have to be off through the fields, gathering the sticks to light the fire. And the turf, of course. We had plenty of turf them times.
Were there rivers, lakes and streams? Any stories connected with them?
The river was down the road from us, way down lower Knottstown we call it. Down the lower road, and we used to go down as far as the edge of the river, and some of them would have courage maybe to jump into the river and swim. Only some of them now.
Were any local fairs held around about?
Fairies.
Fairs.
I'm sorry, I thought you said fairies. There was a Cashel Fair Day, yes, there'd be a big fair and all the animals would be in the markets to be sold on the streets in Cashel. We had the animals roaming around the street trying to get in the doors and everything. There was fairs. We used to get, my dad used to bring me in the Bear of Bicycle and to see the cattle fairs.
Did buyers ever transact businesses at crossroads or at farmers' houses?
They did, they did. We would have been too young for it, but there was crossroads dancing we wouldn't be allowed to go to it. The older ones would be out at crossroads We all dancing at the crossroads with the music playing, and all the ladies and gents were dancing around the road.
Was the town fair held on the street or in a special fair place?
Yeah, it was in the streets. The animals would be on the street. A fair day she's talking about, isn't it? With the animals being sold on the streets.
Was the toll paid on the cattle sold? How much and who to whom?
Well, if the owner was selling his bullock, I'd say they'd be a shake hands on the price. I'd say they wouldn't be getting much more than a £5 note.
Was luck money given when an animal was sold? What was it called? How was it calculated?
With the luck penny was a slap on the hand. They both slapped on the hand and they give a £0.5 to each other. Or whichever they give the...
Which were the great fairs of the year locally?
I'd say maybe the September sales now would be the best sales for the animals, yeah.
Were there special fairs for sheep, bonnets,
There was, yes.
or horses?
There was special fairs for the pigs. The pig market would be a different day, and the turkey market would be there at Christmas. You know, they'd send the turkeys on the street at Christmas.
Did older people tell you about food before your time?
Well, I'd say the food in that time was like the time of the famine, that say potatoes. We say the spud, as we'd know it now, the spuds were the eating food then. And the brown bread, they'd have the whole meal, they'd have to ground the whole meal to make a cake of bread. And flour, say mix the two of them together to make the cakes of bread. That's what you mean.
What food was for breakfast?
Well, I'd say the ordinary cake of bread that was after being made. There might be butter and there may not, although they made a lot of homemade butter in them times.
Was milk drunk? What kind of milk?
They drank an awful lot of skim milk, which is milk that the cream would be after being taken off. And they drink the milk. Skim milk they called it. Very healthy. And they made the butter then out of the cream of the milk.
What kind of bread was eaten in olden times? How was it made?
I can repeat this because the old people used to grind their own meal. You know, the wheat in the gardens. They used to grind it down. They had a special thing for grinding the meal. And then they'd have some flour and they'd mix the flour and the whole meal together and they had a lovely brown cake of bread out of it. And that was the most eaten bread them times.
Was meat often eaten? Was it fresh or salted? What kind of meat?
It was salty bacon. The pig killed at home. The people would kill their own pig and they'd salt the meat. They'd smoke the meat, they'd have the meat hanging down the chimney. To be in the open fire and they'd hang the meat in the chimney so to get it smoky. They salt it and they boiled that then with cabbage. That was.
Was fish common vegetables?
Not a lot of fish, I'd say. I don't think so. I don't remember a lot about fish at all. So we were too much further, we're further inland and fish wasn't very plentiful in them times.
Was vegetables common?
Oh, we had plenty of vegetables, all right. There was plenty of carrots and onions and cabbage, turnips. We used to eat the turnips when we were coming home from school. We'd steal them in the fields, break the turnips and eat them coming home from school along the road.
Anything else eaten that is now gone out of fashion?
Well, I suppose them times crab apple was the things we used to pick off the trees and eat them as well. But they're not there anymore. People don't bother eating those things anymore. Crabs are making crab apple jelly like we used to make crab apple jelly them times. And the blackcurrant jam.
Were certain foods eaten on special occasions?
I think now most of the time at Christmas there would be the turkey and a goose. They'd kill the goose and they'd roast the goose the same as the turkey. That would be fairly common to have a goose for Christmas and a turkey for Christmas. And we killed a lot of rabbits in our time and roast the rabbits. We used to roast them in an oven that was open fire. And you'd lick your fingers after the rabbits, they'd be lovely.
Did certain customs attach to certain feast days?
I'm kind of bet on that now, I can't remember. May Day, of course, would be one of the days we would have had. There was a special treat for May morning. You went out in the fields and you sprinkled all the land with holy water, and they'd go to the wells to get the water. It was known as May Day. It would be a day of extra special prayer. It was known as the feast day of St. Joseph the Worker. So the people would have special treats on that day.
Do you know of any place locally known as Falach Fiha or some such name?
Boherlahan is what in English? I don't know what that means.
It's an ancient cooking spot
Is it?
where the Fianna would have cooked the deer when they were hunting.
Never heard of
It would be down by the river.
Fairy fort now is all I thought that's what it sounded like when she said it. The fairy fort, we were always warned not to go into a fairy fort. It was unlucky to go into it. But we were trying to look anyway to go in. We'd go in in spite of it being told not to. But nothing ever happened to us. We didn't see a fairy.
Do you remember any song or piece of music? Can you sing it or say it?
Cadain mi festa gan aimud, tá der an a gwytler lor, níl teachta gil ceis ná an taila, san partner time, well no, I can't remember. Gil ceis.
Why and when was it made?
It was made when we were going to school because the master used to pretend to sing this Cadain mi festa gan aimud, and we'd be in trouble if we didn't sing it. But we used to make, like we have to do now, a bad hand of it.
Are there any ancient local monuments such as crosses or standing stones in your area?
There's a castle in Arneil, right in front of the graveyard. And there was kind of a haunt for young people that used to love going around the castle, which it was dangerous because the stones were all loose. And I don't know what they called that castle now, to be honest. But there was another castle in Sinoan. We used to go into the castle in Sinoan already, but it was very dark there. We wouldn't go up the stairs or anything, it was too dark. But that was two castles now, I know.
Tell me exactly where it is.
It's down in front, did I tell you that? In front of the graveyard in Arneil. That's where Castle Castle is. But then the other one is up here in Sinoan. As you came up here, you'd pass it on the way up here.
Any stone circles, druids, altars or capstones in the area?
There's one down someplace in Ballysheehan where they used to say mass down there. It's kind of there's a moat and a big tree up on top of it. That was ancient. In the times when we were young, we used to have a mass there. I was only in it once as a child. But in later years then I used to go into the graveyard in Ballysheehan, so it used to bring back memories of when I was up there. So that's the only one I know.
Are there cairns or stones in memory of the dead?
Oh, there's loads of ruined stones down there in Ballysheehan. There's an old graveyard, and the stones are very, they're tossed about a lot. But then there's some lovely new ones as well. There's a very ancient graveyard there.
What other ancient monuments are found in your district?
There's a moat in Armail, there's a big hill there at the cross before you come to the graveyard. There's a moat there, and they put a lovely statue of Our Lady up on it there, some in the early 60s, I'd say, or maybe thereabout. It still stands, the moat in Armail.
Is there a ruined church or monastery in the neighbourhood?
was now, Meal was the only one I'd remember, and that was all renovated, and it's lovely now.
Any traditions about it?
Well, them times, say in years gone by, say all the old people used to go to Mass in that church. But, I should have said it was a Protestant church, but now it's turned over to the Catholic church, and it's after being renovated, and there'll be local weddings and all there now.
Does it have any carvings on doorways? Any inscribed or ornamented stones around it?
Well, there'd be lovely work on the graveyard, say on the stonework out in the graveyard there is lovely. But I don't know of anything in the church now that could bring to mind. I know of late there was a lovely cut glass window put into it. A lady made the window and put it into it, and it's beautiful.
Any account of connection between your local area, any episode of Irish history?
And the only Irish history we could go back on, I suppose, would be from the time at the Antrostal in Cashel, around Cashel in the Rocky area. That'd be the only thing that come to my mind. There's a lot of history attached to that now. That'd be in all the books. Antrostal was 1950, early 50s anyway, and they had a big pageant in there, and they had them, like you're after asking, the Fenians and all riding on horseback, and the swords and the shields and all. They came up to town, and beautiful music and everything being played there in Cashel.
What changes in the area what changes in the area over the years have you noticed?
I suppose the most we have noticed of change is the electricity came in 55, and we had nothing only candlelight before that and oil lamps, but when the electricity came in 55 then we had a great change in lifestyle. We had every comfort then. And when the running water came, the tap water came, which isn't so many years back, when the water came we could turn on the tap and have a bit of pressure. There was no more drawing buckets of water from the well, which we always had to do.
Thanks, Katie.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Katie.